Hello and welcome back to Open, everyone. Pregones PRTT Traveling Theater opens the Manhattan premiere of its award-winning musical, The Red Rose, conceived and directed by Rosalba Rolón. The Red Rose pays homage to Afro-Puerto Rican luminary Jesús Colon, a foundational figure in Puerto Rican Latine New York, an influential chronicler of the early Pan-Caribbean migrant experience. And bueno, The Red Rose centers its narrative on a fateful encounter between Colon and undercover FBI agent Mildred Blaveau and their subsequent face-off before the House Un-American Activities Committee in 1959. The production features a reimagined design, musical arrangements by Desmar Guevara, with additional music by legendary Danny Rivera, along with the new cast. And joining us to share more, please welcome Pregones PRTT co-founder, artistic director, and Red Rose director, Rosalba Rolón. Hello, Rosalba.
Hello, Rhina. How are you? Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, always. Thank you for making the time, because I know you were in the midst of mounting this massive production in the downtown location of Pregones PRTT. And I gotta say, I'm always in awe over the storylines that you choose to highlight in this form. I become educated myself, and so I just wonder, like, is this a thing for the Puerto Rican Traveling Theater location, where it's all highlighting Puerto Rican historical individuals and or storylines?
Well, I think that from our beginnings, in the 1979 for Pregones and also Puerto Rican Traveling Theater under Miriam Colon as its founder and a leader for so many years, I think we both, Miriam and I, and Jorge and our team, artistic team, we've always been in love with history and how we can best bring history to the stage. Not exclusively historical plays, but a big portion of our repertoire is historical historical pieces, and how can we bring them to the stage in a way that is fun and it opens people's eyes and it's not didactic. This is not a course, a history course on the stage, but a fun way to recount a situation. And we've always been taking this research for our pieces very seriously. We engage with scholars. In our case, for this case, we engage with the Center for Puerto Rican Studies and its staff. When we started with historical pieces. Actually, we wanted to stage a pivotal piece of each decade for 100 years, for example. That was our first piece, La Colección, scenes from a pivotal piece, theater or play from each decade between 1878 and 1978, for example. After that, we've done a whole bunch of pieces alluding to real events, and then and how they're portrayed sometimes in the media, but also how what can we bring to the table as additional information, but through music and comedy and drama and all that. So, it is one of those, the Red Rose is just a huge example of that.
Right. And so why the title The Red Rose? I have to ask that because once I started diving into Jesús Colon's background, I kept questioning, where did the title The Red Rose come from?
I know. Well, this is the thing. When at the story, of this Puerto Rican activist and writer who came as a stowaway when he was 17, 18 years old in 1925. And shortly after learning English and began to write in English, so he communicated with even more people about the experience he was having as a recent immigrant. he became an activist with time. He worked at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and in Brooklyn they founded a club, La Pasionaria. And La Pasionaria was a social club that had classes, English classes for recent immigrants. It has all kinds of services and all volunteer. It was a time when, also when the Communist Party was very active in the United States, and it was not it didn't have the stigma or the connotations that it had later on when the House Un-American Activities Committee was founded and began that huge witch hunt in the 1950s. So some were very involved with the party, as was Jesús Colon, others were not. But the bottom line is that they were the activists of the time. They organized the first Puerto Rican day parade, the small one, but it was theirs. And so
I read somewhere that he's dubbed the godfather of Nuyorican poetry.
Well, then when he became a writer, his two tracks were the stories about what he was observing, like very factual. And then it was the literary, the poet in him and the creative writer in him. And he wrote these amazing pieces. And but when I don't want to give away the story. There was someone in the club who was eventually, submitted more than 1,000 names from Puerto Ricans here and in Puerto Rico and everywhere to the House Un-American Committees, and they were called the Puerto Rican Reds, and they were called to testify. Jesús Colon was called to testify, and then he began to discover the enemy, in a way, who these people were. And so when I began to do this research at the Center for Puerto Rican Studies, and I want to thank also Dr. Felix Matos, who was then the director of the center, who helped me immensely in accessing this information, including copies of Jesús Colon's letters. Then I realized and I discovered that whenever he wrote a letter to one of his enemies or people who were after him, he would write them a letter and he would sign, "For you, a red rose." In other words, he was not about, "I'm not going to hate you, I'm just sending you a flower." And so I said, oh my goodness, what can I do with this? And I thought, this is what we offer. This is a flower. Let's talk, and you do what you need to do. I do what I need to do. But I just was. I said, how high can you ride? Right?
Yes.
Talking about taking the high road.
Yes.
That he actually, that's how he signed some of his letters. And that's where the inspiration came from, the title.
Love it. No, thank you for sharing that, because I kept wondering. I'm like, the red rose, because I didn't read anything related to that. So I can imagine we're going to learn more throughout these productions. Now, talk to us about Danny Rivera's involvement.
Well, when we opened this is a revival, because the premiere of The Red Rose was in 2005. It was the inaugural production of our brand new theater in the Bronx in Walton Avenue. So when we opened our theater, we opened it with this production, and Danny and I had been talking for a while about doing something together. And I said to him, Danny, please, let's see if we can make this happen. You'll be an actor and you're coming to New York. And he was like, oh, okay. and I remember two things. I remember I was in Puerto Rico and for a visit. And we sat and we were talking about this, and I kept sharing the stories that Jesús Colon wrote and saying, then look at this story, look at that story. He said, okay, I'm in. And so he became a collaborator. He came in, he performed, he recorded, and we have a CD with him, his recording. And guess what? One day he was visiting us, me and my husband, and he was sitting on the kitchen table, and I said, Danny, we still need a song about the red rose, a song itself that says the red rose. And there was a napkin next to him, and he took a pen and he started writing. I said, wait a minute, let me find a piece of paper, and he starts writing, and going, you know, and he wrote the song.
Wow.
And I said, this works, Danny, this works. So anyway, he became a huge hit, and he was, and he's an amazing friend. Actually, he's not in the production this time around for a number of reasons. And one of them is his very busy schedule, but he sent the cast the most beautiful a video with a beautiful message. So he's very much a part of it still.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story. That was lovely. And so I'm going to assume this presentation is multimedia as well. Most of your productions downtown, I notice, have all these other components. So walk us through what people are going to experience before we go.
Well, there is some sort of parallel stories, things happening. As I said, because he was a writer of articles and a writer of short stories and poetry, and is a great poet. On the one hand, we have the arc of the story. The arc of the story is the courtroom drama. In other words, it is the actual interrogation that I was able to retrieve, the actual documents with the interrogation of Jesús Colon. He took the Fifth Amendment 25 times, and others followed suit. This happened days before the committee was going to go to Puerto Rico, and in Puerto Rico was a big mess. I think that they were there only for 2 or 3 days. They just had to leave. But Jesus sort of sat there, and he just said, I'm not going to answer these questions. I'm not going to answer these questions. And so we have that drama of the actual interrogation, and then we interrupt the drama with some of the stories that he wrote, but also the love stories and the love letters between him and his wife.
Wonderful. Once again, Rosalba Rolón, everyone. Thank you so much. Rosalba,
Thank you, Rhina.
Red Rose director, Pregones PRTT co-founder and artistic director. Once again, the Red Rose opened with previews November 30th and will run through January 7th, 2024 at the Puerto Rican Traveling Theater located at 304 West 47th Street in Manhattan. For tickets and more, visit pregonesprtt.org. Stay tuned. More open when we return.